Welcome back to Theology on the Avenue for the third Sunday of Easter and the first weekend of May. In the Gospel this weekend, we hear from the Apostle John. We heard on Easter Sunday when John and Peter ran to the tomb. John was faster, but he waited and let Peter enter first. Now, on this third Sunday of Easter, John tells us of the third appearance of the risen Lord to the apostles. They're up in Galilee, which we had also heard in the Easter appearances, that the apostles from the angels ought to meet him in Galilee, Galilee, the place of his work, of his mission, where he fed and where he healed. And the text this weekend is set on the Sea of Tiberias, which is another name for the Sea of Galilee. So much has happened on that sea. He calmed the waters. He had the miracle of the fish that the apostles brought in to the boat. He did the loaves and the fishes nearby on the plains of Galilee. And in this post-resurrection scene, he is at first not recognized, a little bit like the story of the disciples on the road to Emmaus, a little bit of a mystery that they don't always recognize the risen Lord until a particular moment. And the moment, the story, it happens this way. In fact, Peter says that he's going to go fishing. And he's with Thomas, the twin, with Nathanael, with the sons of Zebedee, who of course are James and John, and two other disciples. So 7 are there. And they go fishing in the dark at night, a good time to fish. But they catch nothing. And as they're returning, they eye a person on the shore who's starting a charcoal fire to cook. And this person asks them, in effect, any luck fishing? And they say, no, nothing. And he suggests that they try again and that they go to the right. And what happens? Like the miracle of the fish the first time, they bring in 153 fish. There's always something about numbers in the scriptures, and especially in John. What this number means, we don't really know. But the number could simply be the fact that it happened. The eyewitness documentary account that they were so astounded by the take that they counted them. Some people think it may mean the number that was accepted for all the variety of the fish. I like this one. If you add them up, it's 9, that perfect number of the divine, 3, 3, 3. But whatever it is, it's in that moment, like the breaking of the bread, that the apostles, in fact, it's John who says, it is the Lord. They recognize him. And Peter, who according to the text is scantily clad, puts clothes on and swims to shore. They're still on the boat, and Peter, in his enthusiasms, goes to the Lord. And what I think that tells us in this text is the notion of that sea. That sea, of course, and the bark of Peter, the church. The sea is still turbulent. The sea still needs to be calmed. And it's the risen Lord who's on the distant shore. He's there. And that bark of Peter and those apostles and disciples are moving toward him. And when they get there, he does what he does best. He feeds, he nourishes. He takes the fish and he has bread, the two symbols of who he is. And, as the text says, he offers the fish and the bread to them in that Eucharistic sense. When we think of this scene in John 21, it's the last scene of the apostles with the risen Lord. In fact, it's the last chapter of John. And the gospel continues this weekend from that point to asking Peter 3 times, do you love me? And each time Peter says, yes. And each time the Lord says, feed my sheep, feed my lambs, feed my sheep. But Peter's hurt because he knows why he was asked. But this threefold affirmation that John the Apostle is witness to, as he deferred to Peter there on Easter Sunday and let him go into the tomb first, is a reminder to us of the timetable that John's Gospel is written toward the end of the first century, when Peter himself has run a race to the Vatican Hill, to Rome, in martyrdom for Christ and his church, because of the love that he exercised and shared with the Lord that day on the Sea of Galilee. Notice that the question is not, do you follow me? Do you follow the rules or anything like that? Do you love me? That the relationship of any Christian is a personal one with the risen Lord. And that timing of the gospel, it's the last scene just before the gospel ends. And it's that gospel and its author, John, who take us, in effect, into the 2nd century, because John will ordain St. Polycarp. Polycarp, the bishop of Smyrna, who dies around 155, learned from John and was ordained a presbyter, a priest of the church, we believe, by John. And we're told this by St. Irenaeus. St. Irenaeus, who was sent by St. Polycarp in the middle of the 2nd century to Léon in Gaul, in France. And so, as the New Testament era comes to an end in the Gospel of John, with the last appearance of Jesus to the apostles, that apostolic notion of the church continues in Polycarp and in Irenaeus. And so we have, at the beginning of the 3rd century, because Irenaeus died around 202, we have a man who knew a man who knew the man, that is Jesus Christ. That man, St. John, the author of the text this weekend, was at the foot of the cross, and he was the witness to Peter's love there on the Sea of Galilee.